Today, the Franklin County Prosecutor's Office received the SIU investigation reports regarding the shooting death of Antonio Zambrano. I made a commitment to the public that I would make public notification of when the SIU reports finally were received. This has occurred. I would like to outline the process going forward so the public and media understand where the case goes from here. Many of you know I am currently involved with another homicide case that a jury was seated earlier this afternoon. While I will be involved in that case, it will not slow the review of the Zambrano shooting. I have consulted with the staff in my office, and we are in the process of reviewing this case by the deputy prosecutors in my office. This will be a team effort. We have received numerous requests by media for public records relating to this case. One of the purposes of today's conference was to inform the public that the records are in our office. Based on earlier requests for documents on this case, we have anticipated the need to handle the large volume of materials for public viewing. I would like to thank Governor Inslee, who has made state resources available to assist us with preparing reports with any redactions as may be required under Washington public disclosure laws. We are also coordinating at the state level a medium for making the documents accessible pursuant to complying with the large number of requests. We will be posting a link on the Franklin County webpage at www.co.franklin.wa.us, as well as on the Franklin County Prosecutor webpage, which is the same with the /prosecutor at the end. It is through this medium that public records requests will be available without cost to media and the public regarding this matter. While I will be utilizing the full resources of my deputy prosecutors and staff in an already busy office, we estimate that even with the state resources, the release of materials may take up to 30 days due to the large volume of these materials. A copy of the SIU file will be prepared and provided to the county coroner to assist with making a final determination on a coroner inquest. We have been in contact with the attorneys representing the mother and father of Mr. Zambrano, and we are in the process of meeting with this family to discuss the case. This is a standard practice in cases involving homicide. A thorough review will be conducted on this case, and while our goal will be to expedite review as quickly as possible, we will not sacrifice a quality review for speed. I'll be available to take a few questions, but just a reminder, we just received this report in our office today. I have not had an opportunity to review this file personally. We are in the process of beginning the steps necessary to be able to fulfill the public records request and try to make these materials available as quickly as possible to members of our community and members of the media. A copy will also be provided, like I gave information earlier, that Mr. Blaisdell will receive an unredacted copy of the entire file, and he'll be able to use that information to determine where we go from here. We do not yet have a date that I'm aware of. I don't know if you have a date or an expected date, but because this just arrived to my office, we're going to try to get a copy to the coroner as soon as possible, and that'll be able to begin that process of expediting review. These are 4 volumes. We received 4 3-inch binders of materials, and that is just the printed material. There's a bunch more additional materials that are in the form of electronic media, including additional videos, which include the in-car camera videos from the patrol cars. It also includes additional cell phone videos that were taken at the time of the events. We hope that all information, as with any case, we want to make sure that we have all these materials, and we have received that today. I just want to thank the SIU investigators. I think they have really worked hard. I recognize the frustration it has been to many of us in the community about the delay, but again, I think their heart has also been put in the effort to make sure that we have a quality and thorough investigation, and I believe that we will know, as well will the public know, that once we're able to release those materials and everyone can have that opportunity to review for themselves. I'll be open for some additional questions, but again, I don't have specific facts about the case. As I said, I just received it. We're going to try to work as fast as possible to get that out and prepared for the public, but I'll go ahead and take questions. Dave.
Shawn, you've been requested by many community members, organizations, and others to step aside from this case.
Yeah.
How are you going to assure the Hispanic community, who many of the Hispanic leaders asked you to step aside, how are you going to assure them and the rest of the community that you're going to be able to make a just call on this shooting?
I think the best thing for a path forward is also to look at my prior experience. What have I done since I've taken office as prosecutor? I think if anybody reviewed the prior cases, they'll recognize that we've done a thorough evaluation, a thorough investigation has taken place. We've evaluated cases where, individuals, private citizens have used force and even lethal force, and a charging decision was determined that those cases were justified. We'll do the same evaluation for this case, and I think that our experience with how we've treated all the other cases up to this point, I think that's a good record and basis to assure that we are going to give this our full attention. Like I said, we're a small prosecutor's office, but you know what? We have a duty to do. We review cases on a daily basis, difficult cases. I made a commitment to the public so that we'll be as transparent as possible throughout this process, so long as it doesn't interfere with the ultimate decision that will be made on the case. And we're trying to do that. And we're trying to make sure that we utilize the state resources that have been offered, from the highest level of our state government. So.
As a follow-up question, Shawn, and I appreciate your question, your answer. Your relationship as a former police officer, your relationship, you've said in the past in the press conferences that you have a very close relationship with the SIU and that you have been abreast the entire investigation. How close have you been to this investigation?
As far as my closeness with the investigation, I'm not involved in actually conducting the investigation. I've asked to be updated as members of the community, members of the press have asked me quite regularly, and rightly so. They've asked me for updates on the case, and that's what I've been trying to do. I've been trying to identify what remains for the investigation, what kind of additional steps are necessary before I could get this file. Frankly, I wanted to have this case much sooner. Preferably, it would have been nice to have this in April prior to this case, the current homicide case, going to trial. But again, we have the ability to do that. I have very capable deputy prosecutors and staff in our office that will allow spreading this workload out so that we can proceed. Even though I'm going to be in trial with my chief criminal deputy, that's not going to slow us down. We are working on this process, and it has our utmost priority, just like it should.
How many members are part of your team, the deputy prosecutors and staff?
I have 10 deputy prosecutors, and we have a total staff office of 27.
And well, they can't all be working on this one case.
Right. We have, we have many other cases, serious cases. As you know, we've had another homicide case that came about a few weeks ago. We finally brought in that person, and that was about the same time frame of this particular case. In fact, it was just a few days earlier, almost in the same area at Fiesta Foods. So we don't let that slow us down. We have to take the cases as they come in, and I think we're very effective in being able to spread that workload out. But it is a team effort. It's not just prosecutors, it's my support staff as well. And I'm very appreciative for all their hard work that they do for us.
Do you have a set number of how many specifically will be working on this case, on reviewing their report?
I've asked right now to identify all the different witnesses that we have identified. Frankly, I haven't had an opportunity to do that because, like I said, we just seated a jury for our homicide case. But one of the things that we'll be doing first is identifying, going through all the witnesses. Those witnesses, once we have that, we'll divide that number amongst the deputy prosecutors that are able to take that on. I've asked that I get a memorandum, essentially a summary of those statements, the request for additional investigation that might be required. I've mentioned this is a homicide investigation, and as with all cases, there's usually a need for follow-up interviews. That was something that was shared at our community forum that we had at CBC. We talked about the fact that law enforcement will conduct their investigation, but I have a different obligation. I need to make sure that going forward, I need to figure out first, do we have enough information to proceed for a trial? If there was going to be charges, what would those charges be? Who would be charged? Because obviously in this case, there's 3 officers involved. We'll have to determine what each one's responsibility is. So we're going to have to look at all of those factors, and that's going to be a task that we're capable of doing.
Shawn, can you detail what exactly was handed over to your office? The number of documents, the number of videos, what all did the SIU hand over to you?
Essentially a banker box of 4 files, and those are 3-inch binders. Essentially a lot of those are going to be pictures, statements, paper copies, as well as electronic medium. A lot of this was condensed down to electronic drives, and that's going to be one of the things that we're going to do, is we're going to have to get additional drives so that we can send these off to the state agencies that are going to be assisting us with the processing of the public records side of it. As you know, it takes some time when redactions need to be made to protect privacy interest and basically just to comply with the Public Records Act. So we're going to try to do that as fast as possible, and I'm very appreciative at the state resources that have been offered to us.
Yeah, but what are we talking about here? We're talking about thousands of pages of documents. How many videos are we talking about? How many witnesses do you know?
Yeah, I don't have that specific number offhand. I know that the number of witnesses is over 80. I know the volumes, just by, if I'm just to estimate just the number of file copies, that's probably into the thousands for sure. There's different photos. I was advised that the FBI, I think we mentioned this maybe earlier, the FBI had reviewed some of the videos that were taken in this case. I believe they went through and tried to enhance all the videos that were taken, and they even broke it down in frame by frame to assist those that would be reviewing the case. So there's going to be a number of slides. In approximation, I think I heard a number of like 15,000 that are going to be part of all those videos. I don't know how that breaks down to which video has what number of slides, but that's going to be obviously be helpful in making a thorough decision in the end.
We're talking about dozens of videos, other than the sort of one that everybody around the world.
I don't have the exact number, but it's more than what was originally released. I believe there's some additional cell phone videos. There's some in-car camera videos as well. That has not been released prior to today. And so again, as soon as this case is complete for me, but my staff is going to be reviewing all of that information along with the assigned duties of reviewing the certain witnesses that will be assigned to each of them.
And when did you say that would become public? You said that they would be available online. And
typically, public records requests take up to 30 days. Now, we're going to try to do this as fast as possible, but I think that's a reasonable expectation at this point. I'm going to work with the state agencies that are assisting us to see, where we could go and get that expedited. But we haven't even been able, just because we received this at around noon today, we haven't yet been able to consolidate everything to be able to send that off to them to begin that process of redaction. So I think the 30-day period is pretty ambitious considering the volume of the case, but I think that's what our goal is to do at this point.
Was there any recommended charges or conclusion provided by SIU in its information they gave?
SIU does not make recommendations. They do give us a summary. Again, I haven't had an opportunity to review that summary, but it basically is an outline of some of the information that relates to the case. But they do not make a charging decision. They recognize that that's our office's decision.
Prosecutor Sant, now the coroner very early on said that he was going to call his coroner's inquest. Are you simply preparing this for a trial, or are you going to make a decision before that inquest is heard before a jury?
If this proceeds forward with the coroner inquest, we will not release our charging decision. Again, the coroner hasn't been given that opportunity yet to have the benefit of being able to review the materials. I think the coroner is an independently elected official. I don't want to interfere with that process. I think the coroner's capable of being able to review the materials himself and be able to determine if that would be of assistance and benefit. I have the coroner standing next to me right here. He could perhaps answer some of that, but I know one of the concerns early on was making sure that the public had this information. So I don't know with that process if that changes anything, but certainly that public information going out to everybody as well as directly to the coroner for review, it'll still be up to the coroner's call to make that decision. At some point we'll have to coordinate. If there is a decision to go with the coroner's inquest, we will prepare our case as to conduct that inquest, and then we'll have to make a decision after that process.
Shawn, I've talked to both you and Dan here about this. Are we looking probably into August before a final, decision is made?
I hate to speculate. One of the biggest concerns that I have, and one of the goals that I've made since taking office, is to make sure that justice is not about winning, it's about getting it right. And I think on a case like this, as with all the other hundreds of cases that we review on an annual basis, we need to get this right. And I'm not going to sacrifice quality for speed. I know that the public wants to have an immediate decision. I know the public wants to have answers. and I share that concern. I think it's a valid concern. One of the things that we do in homicide cases is we meet with the family that's involved so that we have a chance to answer questions that they may have prior to a final decision being made. So that's certainly going to be on the timeline, is meeting with the Zambrano family if they choose to do that, and I believe that's going to happen because we've taken steps to make that happen. But prior to a final decision being rendered, we would definitely want to have that communication with the family.
Can we ask the coroner a question? Are you available for?
Yeah.
All right, so is the plan right now still to go ahead with the coroner's inquest, then? Is that the plan as it stands now, or do you have to review the documents?
The plan right now is to go ahead with that, but I still reserve the right to review the documents and everything and then make the final decision after that.
Shawn, if they do go with the coroner's inquest, does that change at all releasing the documents, or will they be released to the public?
A good question. I believe one of the concerns that I shared at an earlier press conference that we did to try to keep everybody informed was, if we were going with an inquest like we would if we were going with a criminal case, I can't get into the details of the case. But unfortunately, our review of Public Records Act doesn't say, oh, coroner's inquest is an exception and we could delay that any further. So again, we're going to try to comply with, obviously, with our Public Records Act, and we're going to make those records available. Could that have an impact on impaneling an impartial coroner's jury or a criminal jury? Certainly, it could. But that's one of the things that I think our system of justice requires, is an open and transparent government, and we'll deal with that challenge if and when we are presented with such.
This question for the coroner. After it gets in your hands, how long do you expect it to take you to review these items?
Well, that's a good question, because I don't know how much there is. You know, Shawn said there was what, 3-inch binders plus all of the video and the electronic material. I have no idea.
You come out publicly and already said it's going to come out later in the summer. That's what you said publicly.
Yes.
Now here in this in real time, how long do you expect to take to read this?
Well, I think if we were to proceed with the inquest, the soonest that it would happen, the very soonest that it could happen would be in August. That would be the very soonest.
Shawn, have you felt pressure from how quickly charging decisions have been made in other parts of the country where there's deaths with police officers involved?
No, and here's the reason why. I think every prosecutor's office has, I believe, the same duty. The same duty is to make sure that they have solid investigation, they have the facts before they make those charging decisions. I've got a very busy caseload with the cases that involve my county. My county gets 100% of my time as far as the review of cases. I can't weigh in on other cases because I don't have all the facts in those cases, and these are very fact-specific, very different circumstances. So I don't want to weigh in. I don't want to challenge and say that any decisions that might have been made in other jurisdictions have been wrong. All I know is my duty to the constituents here, and I think to everyone, is that we make sure that we have a thorough investigation in our office for review, and we make a decision that is based on all of that information that we've received today.
Shawn, based on your decision, whatever you and Dan come up with as far as the final decision, do you think this could still go to the next level, to the federal levels, in terms of them taking it over?
I don't believe so. I think there's two concerns, Dennis. One of the things that has come at prior public meetings is what would be the type of charges that could come at a federal level, and there's really only one charge, and that's a violation of one's civil rights. So there's no murder charge that would apply in this case. Any murder charges relating to the shooting death would specifically be related to state charges. Does that prevent the federal authorities from reviewing this and pursuing a civil rights type action? No, but I think, we've heard from Michael Ormsby before. He's our Eastern District U.S. Attorney, say before that those are sometimes the most difficult cases to prove based on the standards. So from what I'm hearing right now is that they have recognize the information. Now, I've also been told that the FBI has received a copy as well. I don't know if that was the entire copy of materials, but I was told that the same investigation that was given to me is going to be given to the FBI. And so they're going to be reviewing it.
We're involved in terms of this particular situation. Is that going to be a critical point in terms of helping to determine what your outcome on this case is going to be, how much of a role each of the 3 officers played?
Well, that's what we owe to any potential person that's subject to criminal charges. We have to evaluate the case, not collectively, but we have to look at any particular charges that might be appropriate for the individual conduct of each person. We can't lump everybody in together. Now, obviously, if evidence came about differently, and again, I haven't had the benefit of reviewing everything in the file, but we will certainly look at every piece of evidence with the case.
My question is for Dan. Dan, immediately right after you did the autopsy, you publicly said that you were going to have an inquest. What more do you need to read, see, to change your mind, or to go on? And why wait so late till December? I mean, till August, if you had already said you wanted an inquest?
Well, right now my mind hasn't changed, but I still want to review the file that the SIU team has put together, their investigation, to see if there's anything in there that might change the circumstances. But at this point, I haven't seen anything or heard anything that has changed.
But a coroner's inquest comes from after doing an autopsy.
No, not necessarily. A coroner's inquest it comes when the coroner feels like the case needs to be brought forward and needs to be transparent.
Mr. Sant, are murder charges off the table on this case?
No, why
For
would
the
they?
3 officers?
No, you're asking me to take, I'm not taking any charges off the table or on the table. I haven't reviewed the information. I hate to speculate of what final outcome may be, but we're going to certainly look at everything. That's an appropriate charge that has to be evaluated. And so it would be premature to take any charges off the table at that point until we've seen all the evidence.
Mr. Sam, as you're reviewing the case, is the focus on whether or not Mr. Zambrano Montes was armed or whether his civil rights were violated?
Well, civil rights violation, again, that would be federal jurisdiction for review. What we're looking at is the use of force issue. Our review is going to be the use of force at the time and what circumstances surrounded that use of force. Was it reasonable? Does it comply with the statute? Is it justified? And that'll be our review.
So just civil rights on entry, that's federal and
right.
That.
Right.
Shawn, are you going to wait for the coroner to make his decision about an inquest before you make your decision about a trial or not?
Well, let me explain this. I wouldn't want it, if the coroner would like to proceed with an inquest, I certainly don't want to undercut that by coming out with my final decision. I think that would undermine the process that is set up in place. And I think the reason why a coroner has that opportunity to call for an inquest is kind of that separation. You've got now a second option for review, and that's a process that will have to be vetted by the coroner to make that decision. But after the coroner has had an opportunity to review the materials, if something does change or if we're going to proceed, I'm sure the coroner will notify me that we're going to plan for an inquest, and a date will probably be coordinated with all our other trial schedules and everything so that we could allocate the time and resources to proceed with that.
Shawn, do you expect or anticipate further investigation? Prosecutors will need police to go out and do re-interviews, and how could that potentially affect the release of documents to the public?
The documents that we have being prepared right now to go to the public may or may not be. I can't comment to say specifically could be affected. It really depends upon our initial review. If it's determined that we need additional investigation, we do that on other cases as well. But once a case has been sent to our office with the reports, that usually triggers a public release or coming under public disclosure laws. And so we want to make sure that if there's a basis for where we could say that there's a need for an active investigation and maybe a certain witness, it's premature to release that information because it could jeopardize us getting the information that would be necessary, we could invoke that. But at this point in time, it's hard for me to speculate on how that might play out.
As far as I understand, Dan, when I spoke with you earlier, you said there have only been 3 coroner's inquests in your 20 years or so.
In Franklin County, yes.
In Franklin County. What is it about this case that, for both of you gentlemen, why is this case more likely to go to a coroner's inquest versus Shawn, you making a decision on your own?
Well, for me, to begin with, it was the controversy surrounding the case, and I felt after talking to other elected officials in the county that that it should go to a coroner's inquest to bring the investigation to make it transparent and bring it out to the public, so that they can see. Yeah, I do. So that they can see that the SIU team did a good job and that they weren't biased.
What
So is that what the
officials
inquest
did
is
you
about
talk to?
then?
I talked to
the SIU investigation?
My question was, is what elected officials did you speak to?
I talked to a couple of commissioners.
Now, is the inquest designed then to substantiate or verify or say, yes, the SIU did a good job and I'm going to give my
No.
seal of approval?
No.
Then what is, maybe I misunderstood what you just said. I thought you just said that you were doing the inquest to basically verify that the SIU did a good job.
It's to show the public that the investigation that was done is transparent, and then to let the jury make the decision.
Shawn, forgive me if you answered this already, but will the report, the SIU report, be given to the Department of Justice?
I believe, yeah, through the
It's
FBI, it's already been sent through them, and I believe they're coordinating with the Department of Justice. But I couldn't speak specifically to that, but when I heard the FBI was receiving a copy of the report, I would imagine it'll work its way there.
Pasco PD receive any report?
Usually, as standard procedure with the SIU protocol, I believe the involved agency also receives a copy of the report. I don't know what the timeline is for that, but that is usually the protocol. The involved agency will always receive the final copy of the report, and that's probably because that's going to be necessary for their review of their own internal process.
Mr. Blaisdell, Franklin County Commissioners, is that who you spoke with?
Yes. Not all of them.
Brad Peck and who else? You know the other guy's name?
Yeah.
Can you name it?
I would rather not. Those couple commissioners that I talked to, though.
All right, I'd like to thank you all for coming here today, and like I said, we'll be in touch with this information coming up on the website at a later time. Thank you.